Now, earlier this month, Northern Territory Police Officer Zachary Rolfe was acquitted on charges of murdering Indigenous man Kumanjayi Walker, whom he had shot 3 times after the deceased stabbed him. Now there are calls for an inquiry into why Rolfe was charged in the first place, with accusations of a compromised investigations and a politically motivated prosecution.
Now, last week, The Weekend Australia also revealed Walker was not just violent towards police, but also to those most vulnerable. Quote, bashing, biting, choking. The domestic violence horror Kumanjayi Walker perpetrated on his girlfriend before being shot by cop Zachary Rolfe.
This outraged the ABC's Indigenous Affairs editor, Bridget Brennan. Over the weekend, there has been a number of reprehensible pieces published by The Australian, she tweeted. Is this seriously the standard we're going to walk past, Australian journalists?
She was joined by ABC Brisbane journalist Melissa Macon, who tweeted, "Absolutely, Bridget, it's so shameful. The not all reporters at the Australian thing is also shameful. The standard you walk past, the standard you accept."
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the job of journalists to, report the facts, even uncomfortable ones? Yes, it is a shame that Walker died, but that doesn't change the fact that he was a violent abuser, or that his last act on this earth was to stab a police officer trying to arrest him. Journalists report without fear or favor. And on that note, the NT News, which is also owned by News Corp, ran this story on Friday. Breaking! Zach Rolfe, quote, deliberately assaulted an Aboriginal man while on duty and later lied about it under oath. It can now be revealed for the first time.
That was retweeted by none other than, oh, you guessed it, Bridget Brennan.
So, just to clarify, Bridget Brennan, it's reprehensible of News Corp journalists to report negative things about Walker, but it's in the public interest to do the same of Zachary Rolfe. Did I get that right? I mean, you can't have it both ways.
As expected, The Guardian joined in, quoting 10 News presenter and Indigenous woman Narelda Jacobs. Jacobs, who is also a member of the Walkleys Board, which oversees journalism standards, said they had portrayed him as a criminal who deserved to die. The community didn't need to hear these things because Kumanjayi Walker was loved. He wasn't this monster that they painted him. There are 2 standards, she went on. There's a standard for Black, Indigenous and people of colour, and a standard for everyone else.
And Jacobs also tweeted that, quote, the parent company of The Australian has a reconciliation action plan, which she then says should be revoked.
Yes, News Corp does have a reconciliation action plan, but it does not involve compromising journalistic standards. The Australian was simply doing its job.
Much more needs to be done to shed light on the appalling reality of life in some remote Indigenous communities, irrespective of the pushback that comes from the left. Because sometimes it's journalists themselves who portray a fictionalised and romanticised account.
When the colonisers came and invaders came along, they brought with them the patriarchy, and the symptoms of the patriarchy and colonialism is misogyny, sexism, racism, discrimination, homophobia, transphobia. None of those things existed before the colonisers came.